Bookstore having a book event in New York style. Come on in.
Your life, and it just came out from Heliotrope Books, and who's my Naomi Rosenberg is here, who's my publisher, and she said
Rosenblatt. I'm Rosenberg. She's Rosenblatt.
I'm sorry, Anita Rosenberg, and she said that she's going to come to New York. Could I think of a potential book event? And I said, you know what? I think I might be able to come up with something. And as my former students know, what I love to do is invite the most brilliant editors and agents and authors that I know, so that we could pick their brain and find out how they got their book deals, or how to get a book deal, or how to land a literary agent. And so that's what we're doing here tonight. So let me introduce everybody. So to our right, we have Pranoy Shakur, who has worked at Simon & Schuster, Picador US, St. Martin's Press, and is now the nonfiction senior editor at Little Brown & Company, the literary house of Hachette Book Group. He's published all kinds of nonfiction: history, biography, popular science, politics, current affairs, economics, journalism, and books on feminism, race, and sexuality. He's worked with Olivia Lang, Andre Osman, Linda Yu, Jeff Goodall, Congressman Andrew McAfee, playwright Andrew Gregory, and the Wu-Tang Clan. And next to him is Anita Rosenberg, who earned her MA in filmmaking from NYU Graduate Film and Television School. She was one of the few female film directors in the late 80s with cult classics like Modern Girls and Assault of the Killer Bimbo. She later launched a global home decor empire out of her garage and a spiritual consulting practice. She's written for The Independent, Tablet, LA Confidential, and Aspen Peak, and her new book, How to Be the Star of Your Life, is just out from Heliotrope Books. Okay. That I think might be really helpful for my students, which is there's different trends in publishing, and one of the things that I've noticed lately, because I love writing memoirs and helping students with memoirs, is memoirs have been a hard sell, memoirs from non-famous people. And so I actually have a section of my book Bible, which talks about, I call it genre fluidity, how sometimes you have an idea and you think it's a memoir, but maybe there's another way to go. And I was sort of fascinated because Anita has this amazing story based on being one of the first female directors in California, in LA, and she was talking about how she was going to write her book, and I noticed that instead of calling it a memoir, she actually did a lot of research. So there's kind of like a film, I actually think, let's see, it says here that, pop culture film studies, so it became in a different category, and also it's inspirational. So could you talk about that a little bit, about, even though you had a great first-person story for this book, was there a reason why you decided to put it in different categories?
Yes, so I'm in a different space than everyone else, so hopefully I can bring a little unique vision to today's panel, and that Sue came up with my title. We did these walks around the park, and every year I'd come back and I'd try a new title. No, it's How to Be the Star of Your Life. And so every year it became that, and then it became that. And one of the things that was interesting about it, early on, what I did is I was sort of, it wasn't so memoir, but I was writing about myself, and my dad said, why don't you introduce and interview other people, it'll be a more interesting book. I was like, and it is a more interesting book, because it's a book of interviews. And one of the things that, so I tried to get an agent, I didn't get an agent. I think I went to Wendy Sherman, that was one of the agencies, I love them, and they represent a friend of mine. So I never had an agent. And I did a lot of proposals. I had a lot of editors. I worked on a lot of versions. And then Sue introduced me to Naomi Rosenblatt at Heliotrope. And she liked it. And it's like, what was this? You go to the dance with the one that invited you, or something like that. And I love that it was a female-owned independent press, and I was just thrilled. My ego didn't have to have a big press. It just, my creativity had to have it made so people could read it. So when I turned in a version to her, And she loved it. And then I brought in another editor who has a chapter in the book, Rex Weiner, who's a writer. And Rex said, Anita, you have a self-help book, a memoir, and a book of interviews. Pick one. And it was really hard. It was really hard. And so I want to say to everyone who's writing, sometimes you have to pivot. You have to make changes. You have to go with the flow. And so I took all the exercises out of the back, all the self-help, and I gave myself a chapter. So so my memoir stuff got to go into the chapter. And there's little bits of me as I introduce people, but it's essentially a book of interviews.
Great, and by the way, it's very common. In fact, I just remembered that I tried a memoir at one point and I showed it to Danielle, and Danielle said it doesn't work as a memoir at all. I actually remember it was, I had written a book about addictions, and this was about food addiction, and so I thought this would be like a sequel to the other addiction stories, and she said it's not commercial, it doesn't work. And I said, why? And she said, because people that write about food addiction have gained or lost 100 pounds and you gain 13 pounds. It's it's an article, it's not a book. And so I said, you weren't, but by the way, it was helpful. It was really helpful. But then she said, it's kind of funny. Why don't you make it a comic novel? Because if you make it fiction, you can really dramatize it. And it turned into my debut novel, Speed Drinking, that I sold to St. Martin's. So sometimes if you get feedback, if you try something and it doesn't work the first time, but you're willing to, to compromise like Anita did. So maybe it was hard to get an agent or a big publisher. Could you talk about some of the benefits of small publishing? Because I definitely have a lot of students who've had incredible luck. They won awards and they've made good royalties on the back end, and they've been able to do fantastic events. And I remember you got amazing reviews. You got a great Kirkus review.
I know, and
Publishers Weekly.
Yeah. I was shocked. I was like, they get it. Because after you send out to so many people who don't get it, and then you meet people that get it, you're like, oh, great. But one thing I want to say, because I come from the film business, the movie business, and it's called the movie business. So we're talking about business and creativity, but my viewpoint on everything has always been business. Because at the end of the day, it's energetic, and you might be super creative, and you might be writing and doing all these things, but when you're trying to pitch and talk to people, and that's part of when you're saying it's maybe not the right agent, or it's not the right person or publication, at the end of the day, people have to make money. And in the film business in particular, it's big bucks. It's a lot of big bucks. So one of the things it's a little bit different that I just wanted to mention is, everything I learned from the movie business, I applied to do 2 more lifestyle businesses. So I had a hand-painted furniture business, and I'm a feng shui and Chinese astrology expert, by the way. I'm just going to do one quick plug. In the back of the book is a QR code, and you can plot your own Chinese astrology chart, okay? So you can find out who you are and what you're all about. That was my self-help to kind of add in there. But at the end of the day, I try to get an agent, and then there's a waiting game, and then you introduced me to a few indie publishing houses that offered me deals that didn't sound so fabulous. And so I was prepared to self-publish. I mean, I was just passionate about my project. I wanted to come out. I've done 8 books. I've done 4 back-of-the-room books that I self-published. And I have done some books that won awards with publishing houses on different topics. And I was just prepared. I'm going to make the book whatever it is. And I think sometimes when you're just prepared to do what you have to do, that the gods of life listen, and all of a sudden there's just an energy portal that opens up, and Sue goes, well, send it to my own publisher. I was like, oh, maybe 6 years ago you could have suggested this to me, Sue. So I love working with the indie press. So I'm going to tell you one little, we're in period 9. We're going to be in feng shui period 9 for 20 years. It's the time of middle-aged women. You're going to see more women in control, more women in power, all you ladies out there, girl, and more women leaders. And to go along with that, when it was a female-owned press, indie press, I was like, yes. I mean, this is the energy pattern. For men out there, align yourself with women, publish more women, because they're the ones that are in power. It's really fascinating, but this is for the next 20 years. So the one thing I will say, though, is you have to be your own CEO when you do an indie press. You have to roll up your sleeves and you do the work. You do hire a team, and I have my fabulous publicist here and her entire team who've been setting up great things for me. But you have to be prepared to roll up your sleeves and get to work and do the things that you need to do. And you get a lot of control. I mean, I love that Naomi was just like, I love your book, and just let me make the book that I wanted to make. And I think that's a huge plus of Indie Press for me. Is I got to make the book I wanted.
No, I think that's great, and I also think that everybody has to say, what is your goal? And I think you could have a different goal for each piece in each book. So probably when you came to me and you asked for literary agents, then I was focusing on, okay, what literary agents do I think might be interested? And then, you know, what smaller presses might be interested. But at a certain point when you said, you know, when you told me your goal is, I believe in this, I love this, I really want it out, and some of the other stuff doesn't matter. The money up front doesn't matter as much to me as somebody who understands me artistically and is going to do it. That's when I thought of, oh, Heliotrope is great for that.
Yeah, well, because I did a book with money up front and I never saw anything else. So that wasn't, and because I have another career in business, that to me this was a
right. And by the way,
it's a
everybody,
passion
you
project.
can, you know, you guys can ask yourself, what's the, you know, what's my most important goal? And if you do have another field, then that might give you leeway to work with a small press because you wouldn't be dependent on the advance. Good. Any other questions?
And ask for references.
Yeah. Good.
If
Ask
someone
for
hesitates
references.
to give you a reference, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz?
I have a question for Anita. You said to get a team together, you had to hire a team in order to get your book out after you went with a small publishing house. Who made up that team? You know, what kinds of people? Not
the team. You know, I brought in a lot of different editors at here, that's right, we have the microphone.
Okay.
First of all, I brought in a lot of different editors. I do like to write, and I've written screenplays, I was in the Writers Guild, but writing books and writing is different. And so I brought in different editors to work with me and help me edit and write. So that had various phases involved. A lot of proofreaders. It's amazing how people can miss things in proof. Even my sister-in-law, who's a lawyer, found things that nobody, like Africa Bombata, like who do I misspell that? And then as far as
Cover art.
more of a team, what?
Cover art.
Cover art. So the publicist that I got, Brooklyn Social Media, that's here, they have a beautiful designer who I had designed the front, but then he had that graphics. Like he came up with that lettering, which was awesome. And then I had a concept for the back. It was a very kitschy book based on Valley of the Dolls. Somebody wrote about Valley of the Dolls, and I loved how kitschy it was. I said, I want my back to look kind of like that. So that was it. That was part of the team as well. And having a good social media, you have to have a publicist that helps you out. Let's see, I don't know, what other team?
You don't have to hire all these people. You have the option to do it, which would probably make your book do better.